program are those of the hosts, guests, and contributors and are not those of WKYU-TV, its management, or WKU.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and Hilltoppers of all ages, we are back for a full ride of Hilltopper Sports Talk here with me, Sean Williams.
Shane Bearden.
Woody White.
And we got the straw that stirs the drink and WKU Athletics. Athletics Director Todd Stewart's in the house for the show. So welcome to the show, Todd.
Thank you. It's great to be with you guys.
Yeah.
Glad to have you on.
It's an honor and a privilege to have you on. So we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna get started. He's gonna be on the show, the entire show. He's not gonna be on just half the show, the entire show. So before we get started, I want to remind everybody it's an interactive show. So just tweet at us at TopperTalk TV if you have any questions for Todd. Tweet us some questions. We'll ask them on the air, and obviously, if they're really good questions, we'll ask them on the air. So keep that in mind. So please be
committee, right?
Yeah, please be interactive with us, and don't forget, just tweet at us at TopperTalk TV throughout the show, and we'll ask you any questions. So we'll get started off with the Big Red Rally and Reveal. It was a big success Thursday night. So tell us a little bit about that. Obviously, it seemed like the marketing department was really pleased with the turnout. Obviously, a lot more fans there than there was seats. So
it was great, really. I mean, Lindsey Boyden and her staff deserve tremendous credit, and Tony Rose certainly helped us a lot with the publicity of it, and our facility staff was great, and media relations staff did a good job getting the word out. And it was a neat night. You know, it really was, and we obviously unveiled the jerseys, and we've had a lot of positive feedback about that. And I was really, really encouraged by the turnout. You know, the mall people had told me, I've been there for the Cincinnati Reds caravans before, and the mall people said the Reds caravan usually has a larger crowd than the Titans caravan has. And the crowd that I think we had last Thursday night was very comparable to what the Reds have had, which to me was really encouraging. And what I think was really neat about it, too, is when you look out in the audience and you saw so many people, everybody had red on, which means they came to be there for the unveiling of the jerseys. They weren't just in the mall shopping and heard some commotion down the hallway and said, hey, let's go check this out. I mean, they were really there to see that, and there was a lot of energy in the building that night. It was a fun night.
You speak of red. I did see a couple of people with Louisville shirts on, but I just won't count them. Go ahead, Shane.
I was going to say, was it the new black in the jerseys that pulled them a little bit?
So what were your thoughts of the new football jerseys?
Well, I like them because to me, they continue our traditions. I mean, it's not like we've come up with some really elaborate color scheme. I mean, everybody has black or some derivative of black really as part of their uniforms anymore. But we keep the red and the white, and we keep the historical component. But yet, to me, you if you're only maintaining, you're falling behind. And I think you always have to be creative in what you do, and that's what young kids like today. I mean, that's what our players like. That's what high school kids like that you recruit. I mean, they want to see what they call snazzy uniforms and really sharp helmets, and I think that's what we have. I mean, I think we have a uniform combination, whichever one we go with. I mean, there's an all white, an all red, and an all black, and we can mix and match too. We can be like I'm a Reds fan, but I can say we can be like the Pittsburgh Pirates of the 70s and mix and match all kinds of different color schemes. But I think Coach Petrino and our players, he'll involve our players' input in that, and I think they'll have some say in what we wear. And I think one thing's for sure, we'll look very sharp on Saturdays and on Friday and Tuesday too.
Yeah,
we have a couple different dates.
Obscure Tuesdays too.
Well, the new jerseys certainly created a lot of buzz, not only on Twitter but everywhere. I mean, everybody's been talking about it, and I think that only helps with season ticket sales and building up to the UK game when you have even more of a buzz on top of the Stoops versus Petrino and all that stuff coming up. I think that can only help things.
Well, no doubt. I mean, I think any time that you are occupying people's minds, that's a good thing. And you really don't want to go dormant for any extended period of time, because in this day and age with social media and cable TV, and there's always something to occupy your mind. So you don't want to lose your fans. There really isn't an off season per se. I mean, there is obviously when you're playing games and when you're not, but we don't ever want there to be an off season where we're not engaging our fans.
Which is your favorite jersey out of the three right now?
I'm curious to see what the red pants and the black top or the black pants and the red top would look like. Now, I'm not trying to be politically correct. I actually like them all. I think they all look good. I don't have a most favorite or a least favorite, but I personally, I think it might be neat to see what some combination of the red and black might look like.
I think it'd be interesting to see throughout the season because you'll see those different combos and be like, oh, that's a good combo. I like that
Right.
combo right there.
And,
But,
and you know how sports are. If you go with one and you win, then it's probably
Yeah.
probably be an inclination to stay with that. And if you lose, discard that forever. So we'll see.
A really neat feature of the jerseys when you got up close to them is the university seal in the numbers, which I thought was really neat. And you kind of expect that too. You see a lot of other teams kind of utilize that, incorporate that in their numbers and letters, anything related to the state or the university. So I thought that was pretty cool to have the university seal embedded into the numbers.
It's pretty unique. You
Yeah.
know, Russell Athletic did a great job with those uniforms. I mean, they really did, and it's a very lightweight fabric too. I mean, it's lighter than what your normal material is, and so I think from a competitive standpoint, there's a benefit too. But the numerals and on TV, I'm not sure you'll be able to see it, and if you're in the stands and you're far away, you really won't be able to see it. But like you guys said, when you get up close to it, it's almost like a little silhouette of the university within the numeral, which is pretty unique and looks pretty sharp.
Yeah. So I mean, how does that, just kind of a behind the scenes, how does that come about whenever it's time to come up with a new jersey idea? I mean, how does that kind of come about? Is that something the coaches come to you about, or how does that develop?
Well, in this case, normally you will change your jerseys, your uniform every 2 years just from wear and tear. You know, you won't always change your style.
Yeah.
But it just so happened that after Coach Taggart's first year here, we were due for a uniform change or new uniforms, not necessarily a style change, but a uniform change. And he wanted to go back a little more traditional, and that's what we had for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Then it was time to switch out the uniforms again, get new uniforms. And with Coach Petrino here and kind of a sense of newness in the program and a sense of freshness in the program, it kind of made sense to change the style again. I don't think it's something we will do every 2 years, change the style of uniform. It's just played out that way. But Russell Athletic actually approached us about some new uniform combinations and involved Coach Petrino in that, and we saw some samples and made some suggestions, and they came back with some other samples, and it was really a pretty interesting process. And ultimately, earlier this spring is when we ended up with the three styles that you saw the other night.
All right, sounds good. See, I like the behind the scenes factor of how this come about and everything like that.
Well,
So,
I think it's great, with Russell being based here in Bowling Green, what we can, how they work with us and, basically feature Western and all of their athletic designs. It kind of makes us their number one and their show point, and that's only great for us to be that.
No doubt. I mean, it's very good having somebody in your backyard, so to speak. It's not like you have to get on an airplane to go visit them or Skype or anything like that. I mean, we can drive down the street and visit with them, and we do frequently, and they're great. They come over to our facilities, and we meet for lunch and exchange ideas, and they're a terrific partner.
It's kind of like, with Oregon having Nike in their back pocket,
Right.
we're kind of the same way with Russell, and
That's right.
That's great.
yeah, not bad. So, kind of rewind a little bit further, before the big unveil, we had Sunbelt Media Days. Tell us all about that, what went on down there. Obviously, Bobby Petrino being down there was a big thing. We saw that on the national spotlight, and national news outlets was showing his press conference and everything. I mean, tell us all about the Sunbelt Media Day.
Well, honestly, I think it was the best Sunbelt Conference Media Day that I personally have seen. The conference office staff did a terrific job, and it really looked like a media day. You had an area set up where there were the ESPN3 interviews going on. You had a radio row, so to speak, like the Super Bowl has, where you have all your live radio stations. There was a separate press conference area, and then you had a media workroom area, and it was all in one big, large room. And Coach Petrino was in high demand, as you would expect. I think he definitely had the most media attention of anybody that was there. And it was nice, though, because, and this is what's really happened, I think, for our program, is all the questions really were forward-looking. It was what's the job been like? How's it gone? What's your vision for the program? It was all about Western Kentucky football. And that's we hired Coach Petrino because he's an outstanding football coach, 75-26 career record. That was the reason we hired him, but a great byproduct that we all felt we would get, and we have, is the amount of exposure that programs receive. I'm not really sure how much of an identity our football program had the further away you got from South Central Kentucky. Certainly in this area, Louisville, E-Town, Nashville to some extent, we have an identity.
Yeah.
But the further away you get from that in football, I don't know if we do. And having him as our head coach has expanded that a lot. We've had a lot of national media attention. I think Sports Illustrated picked him as the 9th best coach in the country. And to be on those type of lists is great for the program. You really can't put a a dollar value on that kind of exposure, and it's been fun to be a part of.
Good.
I think that's one thing I'm excited about too. You know, the way the schedule sets up this year, we've got a pretty good chance to make a good splash early on with two SEC teams who, in our opinion, are fairly beatable. And I mean, you know,
That's
but
just our opinion, man.
yeah, just our opinion. But you know, if you take the momentum that we've got with the hire, and then as you said, just the excitement around the program, it's just another step in building that identity. If we're able to have some success there, I mean, that's definitely exciting from a fan standpoint. I know I've heard a lot of buzz about that, for sure.
Well, no doubt. I mean, we will definitely know where we stand early in the season. You know, normally when you hire a new coach, you like to pad the non-conference schedule, so to speak, and let him get a couple wins and let the guys get used to his system. And unfortunately, this year it's anything but that. I mean, we start off with two SEC teams, Kentucky and Tennessee, and there's no question we will get Kentucky's best shot this year because they've sat around for a year and certainly been asked about that game last
Felt
year.
disrespected.
You know,
They're talking some
and
stuff
obviously,
down
you know,
there.
they're tired of hearing that, and they'll want to make amends for that game, and I know a lot of their fans, you know, wanted them to hire Coach Petrino, and so there's a lot of dynamics that go into that game, and we'll get their best shot. But you know, this is the last game in that series, and we owe the University of Kentucky a big thank you, though. We really do, because this has been a great 4-game series with 2 games in Nashville, and they didn't have to do that. I mean, obviously we benefit a lot more from that than they do, and they didn't have to do that series. But I'm glad they did. I think it was great for college football that they did that. You know, I think it's good for the game when you have these kind of in-state games that take place. It's to me, it's what fans like to see, and I think the sport would be better across the nation if you had more of these type of games occurring on a state-by-state basis.
I mean, it's actually turned into a pretty good in-state rivalry going on. I mean, you know, when you have the UK players talking about that and people asking them about the game, they're talking about our game just as much, if not more, than they are the U of L game right now, which is, you know, I mean, that's a big turnaround from where things have been in the past.
Well, it was interesting to see, you know, from the media days, it seemed like what they were asked about the most was us. You know, and
Even the SEC media did.
Right, that's what I meant. And I don't know when the last time Western Kentucky football was talked about so much at a Southeastern Conference media day. You know, and again, I mean, that's great exposure. That's part of growing a program, is expanding your brand, so to speak, and let more and more people become familiar with you. And you know, I think it's all going in the right direction right now.
It's good. Now, you talk about like being the last game in the Kentucky series. I mean, you kind of see that maybe a contract happening with them down the road again?
Well, we would like to. You know, now I've known Mitch Barnhart for a long time, and you know, he and I have talked a couple times about that. And what we had decided to do that would be best is because we played 4 years in a row, and because there's a little bit of uncertainty conference-wise, will conferences have 8-game or 9-game conference schedules? I think there's a feeling really on both sides to see how many conference games you'll be playing in the future, and then you know what your non-conference situation is. So what we had talked about was giving it a couple years off, and we're actually fully scheduled for 2014 right now, and only need 1 game in 2015. So we had talked about taking a couple years off and then revisiting the topic. So hopefully at some point we can have another series, but I think it would be down the line a few years.
About any chance possibly scheduling U of L for a football series?
We've talked to a lot of people, and Louisville being one of them. And what I think we need to do as we move forward are 2 things. You know, we as a program will always, in at least the foreseeable future, need to play the quote-unquote bye game. But just one. We don't need to play 2 and 3, but we need to play one of those. But I think we can schedule a little bit smarter and try to get those games a little more regional. And that's what we're doing next year. We play the University of Illinois in Champaign, which our fans can make that trip. I mean, it's about a 5-hour bus trip, and that's, you know, going to Baton Rouge was a neat trip. I mean, to play in Tiger Stadium, but that's not really a great trip for your fans in terms of the distance. It's not as easy to go to. I think, so playing Illinois, you know, it's the first time we've ever played that opponent from the Big Ten, so that'll be kind of neat. And then the other thing we need to try to do is get games in Bowling Green, you know, to try to have some good non-conference games in Bowling Green. Ironically, we had 2 good non-conference home-and-home series on the books, Southern Miss and Marshall, and of course Southern Miss came in last year, but now going to Conference USA, which is good. We will play Southern Miss and Marshall on a regular basis, but we lose those. So now we have non-conference openings. Miami of Ohio will take the place of what Southern Miss was, and we've talked to a number of people. You know, I think it's important for us to schedule a home-and-home whenever possible, but not mortgage our future and do a 3-for-1 or something like that. I mean, I think the program now being in its 5th year, there's enough regional competition in this area that would be a win-win for us and our fans, and I think the opponent too. I mean, to have some good non-conference games in here.
And I think since Western's gotten out of that, quote unquote transition phase, we've earned a little more respect on the FBS level, where I think we can get those type of games and not have to, like you said, kind of sell our soul and, do the 3-for-1s for it.
Well, and it's hard to get people to come to you,
Yep.
and we've had that problem in basketball, and you have that in football. Now in football, a little bit of it has to do, to be fair, with stadium size.
Yeah.
I think in basketball we've been able to have Mississippi State and Georgia and Louisville, recently play in Diddle Arena. In football, it's a little more of a challenge because if you're a school and you've got a 75, 80,000 or larger seat stadium, there's a lot of money to be made for playing a home game in that kind of a stadium, and to go on the road and play in front of 22,000 people, that's not an ideal revenue situation. So that's part of the reason why we have a little more of a challenge getting home games. But I still think if we're creative, we can still come up with some really good non-conference teams to come to Bowling Green.
Do you ever see a scenario where maybe you could possibly get a Kentucky Louisville opponent down here and play in LT Smith Stadium?
Well, that'd be great. I mean, if we could have one of those, or anybody from the SEC, and we've never had a Southeastern Conference team play in Bowling Green. So
I mean, I know it's kind of a hypothetical question, and I know the reason we play in Kentucky at LP Field is for the size, and ticket sales and everything like that. But I think it would just be a completely neat atmosphere to have like a Kentucky or Louisville come down here, full stadium, have a bunch of people out there tailgating, and just have a big party around Hatton Smith Stadium. I think that'd be a great atmosphere.
It would be a big time atmosphere. There's no doubt about it. And, we've Louisville's come here in basketball, to their credit, and Nashville's worked out well though, because we have a large alumni base in Nashville, and so does Kentucky, and certainly LP Field. I mean, it's neat for the players on both teams to play in a pro stadium, and it's closer for us really. I mean, we're only an hour away. Kentucky's further away than that, so. It's worked out well. I think this year will work out a lot better too, because it's a Saturday. When we played there 2 years ago, it was a Thursday night game, and then ESPN wanted to televise it, which there's certainly a huge plus in national television exposure. But the trade-off was we had to move the kick time to 8:15 Central, 9:15 Eastern, and that's tough on a weeknight to have a kick time like that. And so there were a lot of dynamics, I think, on the negative side 2 years ago. That hurt the attendance. Really, our program and Kentucky's program 2 years ago didn't have the energy that they both have right now. We at that time had come off a 3-year period where we were 4-32, and I think UK, had struggled a little bit. But now you look at where it is now. They have tremendous excitement about Mark Stoops and the recruiting classes that he's had. And certainly the excitement that's here with Coach Petrino, and it's just a totally different scenario this time around, and it should lead to an exciting game and really a great atmosphere.
You were talking about a stadium size, playing an atmosphere to get opponents here in LT Smith, but I know when they recently remodeled Houchin Stadium, they talked about there was room for it to be expanded. Do you see that happening anytime in the foreseeable future?
That would be a great problem to have. It's for Houchin Smith Stadium to be too small. We've only had 3 true sellouts in the 5 years that we've had it. So we would have to have sellouts on a more regular basis. But 2 of those 3 sellouts were last year. And I think if we can start selling out on a regular basis, we could definitely expand. I've actually talked to Dr. Ransdell about that, and we could do it. I mean, we could do it, but we'd have, there's a cost obviously associated with that. And so if we were to do that, we'd have to have some relative certainty that we would fill those seats, or you end up spending a lot of money and then you lose money because you don't sell the tickets to put in those seats. But we could do it, and I'd love to have the challenge of having to do that.
Cool. Yeah. All right. Well, I actually got a question from Steve Reed, one of our viewers here. He's actually a Hilltopper alum, and he's a big baller down in Nashville. So he sent me a question directly. He said was kind of asking about rumors of the Power 5 conferences kind of breaking apart from the NCAA. Hypothetical question, but if that did happen, how do you think that would affect conferences like Conference USA and other FBS conferences?
Well, you read a lot about that now. I know that that's kind of a hot button topic. I think it would be bad for the sport as a whole, just because, look at the NCAA basketball tournament. There's 341 Division 1A teams, all of whom start the season with an opportunity to play in that tournament. And to me, the whole tournament's great, but maybe the most exciting 2 days of the entire tournament are the first 2 days,
games.
that Thursday and that Friday, when you have games from noon to midnight, and the whole country gets themselves galvanized around a Florida Gulf Coast. Somebody like that, a 15 seed or a 14 seed, the true Cinderella story. And I think that's what makes the NCAA tournament so special. And if you had those 5 conferences pull away, as you just alluded to, college football wouldn't have that. You would never have that. Boise State beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl just a few years ago. I think those matchups, they pique fan interest. I think they're good things. Now I can understand, part of where they're coming from. I mean, it's definitely a different landscape than they're on, and I think there probably needs to be some tweaking to how things are done. But it sounds like that there's a good chance that'll happen, and I'm hopeful that it will, because I think the more people you include, the better it is for the sport overall.
Yeah. Definitely, I kind of agree with you in that, as far as taking the fan luster away if they kind of broke away, and kind of getting rid of the first 2 days of the NCAA tournament. You'd just be a lot of things that fans look forward to as college, sports fans that wouldn't be there anymore. So
I think those big schools, a lot of times, the schools like in the SEC and stuff like that, from those Power 5 conferences that you like to call them, but I think, a lot of times they take for granted, what the rest of the conferences bring to the table, and I don't think they would realize until it was too late that they actually need us just as much as,
Well, you make a good point, and the other thing I think, and this isn't meant as a slight against any school. I'm not referencing any school specifically, but if you take those 5 conferences and you take the 60 to 64 teams that are in those 5 conferences, and you go from top to bottom in each of those conferences, only about half the schools in those conferences are true difference-making heavyweights in terms of the teams that win national championships and go to Final Fours on a regular basis and go to BCS bowl games. I mean, half of the 5 power conferences aren't real major players on the national scene. So, I think you're talking about probably 20 to 25 schools that are probably frustrated with the way things are, and hopefully we can make some changes to the system without overhauling it, where everybody continues to benefit.
You're talking about, like you said, the cream of the crop. There's always the cream of the crop in every conference, and you were talking about Florida Gulf Coast. You think people can jump on the Western Kentucky bandwagon next NCAA tournament?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and that's what I think, and college football will have that moving forward. 10 years ago, if I had sat here and said, there's this school in Indianapolis, Butler, they're going to go to 2 straight national championship games.
You're crazy.
People would have said, this guy is a nut. Why do they have him on the show? But that's what the NCAA tournament provides. I mean, is that opportunity. And I do think moving forward in 2014, the college football landscape, it will get better because you're actually going to have a playoff now. You'll have a Final Four in college football. But in addition to that, of the other 5 conferences, it's called the Group of 5 right now, which is the American, Conference USA, the Mid-American, the Mountain West, and the Sun Belt. Of those 5, one team every single year of those 5 is guaranteed to go to a BCS bowl. So the access for a Western Kentucky it's not easy by any stretch, but it's easier than it's ever been. There is a clear path now, whereas before there really wasn't. You had a couple years ago, Boise State was, I want to say, 6th or 7th in the entire country. They were 11-1, and they were 6th or 7th in the entire country. And the Sugar Bowl needed 2 at-large teams, and they chose Michigan and Virginia Tech, both of whom were ranked worse than Boise State was. You have those kind of situations in college football, and where the little guy doesn't really get a fair shake. Now, in 2014, we will. I mean, we have to perform, and we have to be successful, but we do have an access to the BCS Bowl, and we'll have a chance to shine on the national stage.
Okay.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I know we want to talk about the volleyball team a little bit with their season coming up, and they only lost 2 seniors from last year's team, and a lot of big things expected from them this season.
Well, I couldn't be more proud of any sport program that we have than I am of our volleyball program. And, if you think about it, 2 years ago they went 31-4, and in most sports, regardless of the sport, if you go 31-4, chances are the next season you're probably rebuilding to some extent. But I think where Travis Hudson has our volleyball program is right now is there is no rebuilding. It's just reloading. And they followed the 31-4 season by going 33-4, and winning the first ever NCAA tournament match in program history, and did all that with a 3.5 team GPA.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, you could look all across this country and you'd be hard-pressed to find a sport, any sport, at any institution that's as good on and off the field as our volleyball program here is at Western Kentucky.
So I think that's one of the things I'm most excited about this fall. Obviously, football is huge, and everybody enjoys that. But I've been coming to volleyball games here since I was in high school, and I get excited for those games. They're just the fast-paced and the excitement there. I love going to those, and just seeing the steps that team has taken. I'm really excited to see that next step this year because, you lose Jordan Skinner and Sarah Rogers, but you're replacing them with people who are, that same level of talent. I think they're going to have a really good opportunity to make another good NCAA tournament run this year.
Well, you make a good point, Woody, and I'm guilty myself. I came to Western Kentucky in 2008, and before that, I didn't really have a lot of exposure to college volleyball. Volleyball was kind of like hockey to me. I paid attention to it in the Olympics, and then I really didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. But coming here, the very first year I was here, I really got caught up into it. And if people haven't seen a volleyball match in person, I would encourage them to do so. It is very, very, they're very good athletes. It's high level, and our program is really fun to watch.
Yep.
And they win, too.
Yeah, there you go. Obviously, they did had a lot of firsts, last year, so they're hoping to kind of advance and have some more firsts this upcoming season as well. So, real quick, I know we're kind of running out of time, but just give us some quick thoughts about the basketball team. Ray Harper had added a lot of talented players to his roster. What do you kind of foresee for the basketball team this upcoming season?
Well, I'm excited about the whole year, but I think men and women's basketball are definitely on the right track. Coach Harper's done a terrific job in the 2 years he's been here. Actually made history. We became the first team in the history of college basketball to win our conference tournament 2 straight years by winning 4 games in 4 days, and really turned both seasons around for very different reasons. 2 years ago we had a lot of chaos in the program, and last year we had a lot of injuries, but both years he turned it around, and we've been to 2 straight NCAA tournaments and had no seniors last year other than Jamal Crook, that dressed for the Kansas game. So that whole team is pretty much back, and Coach Hurd, Michelle Clark Hurd on our women's side, just did a terrific job going from 21 losses to 22 wins, and that was with no seniors and only 2 juniors. So both programs are definitely on the right track, and I look for big years from each.
Yeah.
You mentioned the run last year in the Sunbelt tournament and in Harper's first, half season. I think that was sort of one of my favorite moments in WKU sports is getting to sit on press row next to you and watching your excitement as we were winning that championship game.
I got caught up in it.
We did too. It was definitely a magical run.
You didn't get kicked out of the game, did you?
They kind of told us to quiet down.
Oh, okay.
I think Todd's got a little more clearance.
They didn't tell Todd to quiet down.
Well, what do you remember? I just know where we were that year, and we were in a tough spot in January. We played Louisiana Lafayette at home and had 1,800 people, and then all of a sudden, less than 2 months later, you look up at the clock and you realize, golly, we just won the conference tournament, and we're going to the NCAA tournament. It was a remarkable turnaround.
Awesome. Well, we got less than a minute left, so let's get some quick Twitter interaction. John Paul Lack, he just tweeted at us, said, Todd Stewart is the man, go Tops.
Thank you, John Paul.
Matt Coleman also wanted to know if there was any chance of getting TV monitors or play-by-play piped through Smith Stadium or banner scoreboards anywhere.
Well, we're always looking to enhance the fan experience, and we'll have some improvements this year, and those are great suggestions.
All right, and Evan Brown actually tweeted at us, said red and black unis will be the #1 combo on the belt. Mark it down. So that's his opinion. So Todd, you got anything to say before we can get off the air here?
I just appreciate the opportunity to be with you guys, and appreciate all that you do. And certainly we have a lot of winning momentum right now, and we're excited about 2013-14.
All right, thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
coming on, Todd.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
Stay tuned
See
next
y'all next
week.
week.
We'll
Go
be back.
Tops.
Go Tops.
Programming is brought to you in part by Wendy's, now offering new menu items such as the new Asiago Ranch and Smoky Honey Mustard Flatbreads with grilled chicken at participating Wendy's locations.
Was this death threat a hoax, or did assassination run in the Booth family? Did this top secret patent